Right, get us going.
Hi guys, welcome back. It's been a bit of time since our first episode, but we have a special guest and his name is Toby Flood and he plays rugby to a decent level.
Oh yeah. So is that the end of, is that the intro?
That's the whole intro done.
I think you should introduce yourself. You probably
I'm not so sure about that, but I think a decent level one day, a long time ago, but not anymore. I'm still rehabbing and trying to get back and stop hobbling. But yeah,
You're actually looking quite tan, Toby. Have you been away recently?
No, I haven't actually. It's just hotter down south.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more UV knocking about in Hampshire than there is in the northeast.
Yeah, okay, that's
kind
kind of true.
So I think maybe it's just I'm hot to be in the gym.
How is
Working hard, you know. It's all right. It's all right. We're getting there. Still hobbling, but still desperately trying to get it back out there and have a run around. Pretty nasty injury, but in terms of where we are, we're way ahead of time. It's just whether it's going to be feasible.
It's still up in the air.
Yeah,
Still up in the air.
I think it'll be like
on the day.
not
Well, not on the day,
yeah,
the week
close,
of.
but close. Yeah, I think it's little steps, right?
Because I don't. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, just so for people that don't know about your injury, would you be able to just explain like what happened?
Yeah, good point. Yeah. No, so yeah, exactly. It's all about me, right? So yeah, everyone should know intimately what happened. I basically was 2 minutes into a Dodgers game, not even. Just got hit in a rock. My leg got stuck in the ground and then it just popped. So I ended up sort of dislocating my ankle and like had 4 fractures, 2 on the tib, 2 on the fib. And that was it really. So pretty much smashed it up. Syndesmosis a lot. So I've got a lot of metal working there now. So it aches and it hurts a bit, but we're slowly getting there. And it's quite nice to be able to walk. And I was saying the other day, it's quite weird. You sort of write it off. There's no way back, sort of thing. And then you start walking, and you start being able to trot, and then you sort of the weird irrational side of your brain kicks in, and you think you can do something.
And so what's kind of your goal with rehab then? Like, where do you want to ultimately be?
Well, I guess it's a good question. I mean, when it started, the surgeon told me you'd be lucky to walk again and stuff. Well, not walk, but you'd be walking with a hobble, and then you'd be lucky to then run. Be really honest. But I think just because there was a few things in my side that was lucky in terms of lifting lots of weights throughout your career, running on your feet all the time. You had quite dense bones. I think he was quite pleased with that. So that helped, or certainly has helped with the rehab. So now I'm not looking any further ahead than sort of the week plan. So it's just get to this point, keep going, see if it goes on. And the reality is a bit like playing rugby in that pressure. You just sort of don't really look past that week. And if you hit a goal, great. If you lose or you fail that bit, your case, how do you recover? How do you solve it? And then you just go again.
Can you clear up some doubt on the CURUFC chat? Do you remember we got the picture of you thumbs up in a hospital bed, probably the morning after, and you got injured on November 30th. Right. And you had your fantastic handlebars going. Yes. And then you sent us the picture the next morning after this horrible injury. Yeah. And the handlebars were gone. How the hell did you manage to shave?
I hate that mustache so much. It came off on I was awake at midnight on the first after my operation, or whatever, the day after the operation, I woke up and I took it all off. I had a razor in my bag packed. Yeah, so John looked after everything. John looked after everything, bought it in, and in my bag was a razor. I was like, this is coming off straight away. So I sat there, it's probably still stinking, hadn't really washed, hadn't done anything, but the patch came off.
This was in the hospital? You had a little hospital shave?
Yeah. So I asked some water. I had some shaving cream, and I just did the whole thing.
Because you don't like having.
I didn't like it. No, it was for a good reason, for good cause.
Of course,
I don't like it. No, it's weird. You become more pensive, more thoughtful.
Yeah,
you end up stroking it all the time, but not smarter, right? So you just look smart, but you're not. But it was good. I liked it. It's because it's good fun to have and do. It's a great charity for that. But I'm not a great tax wearer. Did you wear it? Did you guys do it?
Do you think? You can?
Yeah. It's. Have
you shaved
just started going through puberty? No, this is last year's episode as well. It's still going. Still going. Just can't really grow facial hair.
Well, that's
at all.
I think BJ was in the in Jeffrey's the other day.
Yeah.
Apparently, someone opened the email and went, that guy needs a shave, and obviously because it's for the Varsity, right? So so I think
of course,
I can grow an okay mustache, right? It's probably one of the only good things I can. I can't grow beard, can't grow anything here, but I can get.
You got quite a lot going on. Yeah.
Got a lot of action on the top lip.
Yeah, I remember Danny Kerr was interviewed about all the England lads and who did the best, and your name was one of the top. You may not have seen it, but you were definitely one of the better ones. Yeah, Finn, you're not blessed in that department, are you?
I just want to grow some hair, at all.
No, a few of us did it. I mean, you weren't one of the fundraising challenges Were you like dyed his hair green or
Cantor
whatever?
and those boys tried to keep me very much in that loop, and I very much kicked myself out of that loop as fast as I could. I did not want to be running around naked or whatever it was, because Dave ran a marathon.
He ran a marathon,
but that's just like another weekend for Dave.
David's
he
normal.
doesn't. Yeah,
but think how many steps that is. He's so small. Like it's like triple anyone else. It's so many steps. What else? What else was the other one?
Canto's meant to do a fake tan,
which he didn't do.
That. No,
he's not done it yet.
No,
so he's not actually honoured his bet.
No, he hasn't. Yeah, Cantor, that's a public call out.
That's not good, is it?
Get your bloody spray tan.
Tan dyed his hair green.
It was brilliant. And now it's that looks great. It's going really well. Yeah.
He dyed it green, but it was supposed to be blue.
Right.
So he messed that up. He messed that up completely. And maybe some good.
Lax bleached his hair.
Oh
yeah, of course.
Danny Hyde was supposed to get a nipple pierce.
Yeah, he hasn't done that.
That's another public call out. Yeah.
Ferg was meant to sing a song,
which he did.
He did sing the song.
The song's ready to go. It just hasn't been posted on
never
the Instagram.
got posted by Johnny.
No.
Oh, did it not? But he posted it himself, didn't he? Because I remember seeing it on the group.
Did he?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. There was definitely a video on the group or somewhere that I saw that he was.
It was
maybe you're right.
So awkward. He was just stood in a room on himself, like sort of swearing.
That doesn't ring a bell.
Do you remember that? That's it. Maybe that's what he does on a Saturday.
Well, to be honest, that's quite just normal, especially to embrace the awkward side of it. But I think if you're listening at home, just harangue Johnny Andrews.
He loves a long cycle ride, that boy. He does love one. But he's an interesting chap. But all right. Well, that's good. So Cantor's out, and then who is? Who else is out?
Danny Hyde, nipple
Hyde.
piercing.
Danny Hyde
I was
needs
going to row the channel, but I think we were about 35 pounds short.
That close?
Yeah, that close.
I forgot.
Thankfully.
Is there a cut-off line?
I don't know.
Oh, excellent.
But I really don't want to row the channel. No.
Right.
I think I would perish. If I did it, it would have been on an ergo. Like it was a bit of a cop out.
Okay.
I wasn't actually going to go. I was not going to go to France. It's a 32k row.
Is it?
Yeah. So it's kind of far.
How long would that take on a row, do you reckon? 2 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah, that was the
LLB with his 2k time. It'll be done by next year. Yeah.
It's one of the speediest things I've ever seen.
Jesus Christ.
What was it? 9.5?
Leather just came straight in. I was like, what are you doing that way?
So
what's going on here?
brutal.
It was horrible.
What was it? Just under 10 minutes?
Yeah, it was like 9.
Yeah, that's
4.8.
That's pretty strong. If you had a fundraising target, what would you have done?
Oh yeah, I'd have absolutely copped out. It's a good question. What would I have done? If I was up and running, I think I would have done some sort of run, like a half marathon or something. I quite like that. I like a run.
Have you done a full marathon before?
No, never had the chance to actually. Quite keen to do one, but again, that was just sort of we go back to rehab. It was actually trying to be able to then run it again. So I'm not sure how much training I can do on it, but we'll see.
So just for the people that don't really know you, I mean, I know a lot of people probably do know you.
I'm sure more people
probably don't.
Absolutely.
So could you run us through kind of your career, just briefly, like what you've done, and then we can go from there.
Can we start age 6 when I first started? Is that the whole thing? Is this therapy? Can I start that every single?
She does get quite therapeutic, so be careful with what you say.
Yeah, so I joined Newcastle at age 18. Well, it was in their academy system, but it's sort of quite raw and random that age. It was sort of a bit ad hoc. So, but I ended up sort of going and joining them at sort of 18. And remember getting called by John Fletcher, who ended up coaching the first team and then running the England 18s age group stuff for a long time, and asked me to come in. So I joined on what they call an associate player, which meant I was farmed out to a local rugby club. So I went out and played at Morpeth, which was where I'd played a little bit when I was younger too. So that was great. And then went from that an associate, then went full time the year after. I was paid £1,000 for the privilege, which was a fortune in my head because I was on zero the first year, so I was rolling in it. And then played my first Premiership game age 19. Then sort of made it into the pathway system. Then capped by 21, and then lots of other bits between then and the end at 36. I think 36, 35, 36, that sort of time. Yeah, so a few Premiership titles, a few England caps, and all that sort of stuff. And
so I'm sure you probably got lots of highlights, but is there kind of a specific memory that really sticks out as like the best part of your career?
I think it's club stuff always does, because club stuff is much more intimate. So winning your first Premiership title was pretty special. We won in a really cool fashion as well. We sort of played really well that day. Sarries, it was against Sarries, and they were going okay too, and they got ahead with about 4 or 5 minutes to go. I just remember how calm we were as a team going onto the field, sort of walking back on from underneath our try line, and Scott Hamilton, ex-New Zealand back, just sort of said, "Stick it there, I'll catch it." Like simple as that. So I did my best to try and get it somewhere in that vicinity. He caught it, ran on the field. Somehow Danny Kerr got the ball and scored in the post, and we still then had to to see out the game. We gave a penalty where we were like 2 minutes to go, probably. And then Jeff Parling, an ex-guy I played with in Newcastle, a really good friend of mine, went up 5 yards out, which is sort of unheard of, or is now anyway, in terms of your procedure, and stole the ball, and that was it, won the game. So that was pretty special. And then I think I was lucky with England as well I think it's more the stuff off the field, but if you pick stuff on the field, I think we went on a pretty incredible run in 2007. Show my age here. And we went to a World Cup final in 2007, so we were sort of written off. Lost to South Africa 36-0, absolutely battered, no hopers. And then we somehow beat Australia in Marseille 12-10. Ended up playing France in the World Cup semi-final after they just beat New Zealand. So the feeling was amazing in terms of just the atmosphere, how you can't sleep, all that stuff that goes around it. And then we beat France somehow. And then, we played in the World Cup final. So it's probably a little bit too young. I remember sort of sitting there with Matt Tate at the end of it and sort of hoping and sort of saying, we've got to get back here. And then you realise it just goes so quickly. And there was no real time that we got a chance to go back. Maybe in 11 had we done things slightly differently and maybe sort of stayed a bit more controlled in certain bits. But I think, there's some special bits, definitely.
No, you're
just
done.
Leading on from that, the pressure that you must have felt, like, how do you deal with that, playing in front of
it's really weird. I think you don't. If I'm really honest, I don't think you ever do. I think you push it away. So I think that's what, so your life becomes so boring because you don't ever allow yourself to be thought of I'm in a really heated environment and I must do this, because what you do is you just bring everything down to process. So when you're goal kicking in front of 80,000 and then millions at home, if you think that, you're out. Like you're done. That's done. You're not going to kick the ball. And I don't wrong. There were times in my career that absolutely happened where I was stood behind the ball. Certainly when I was sort of changing kicking technique, where I thought I was checking someone else about this today, and you know, this isn't going over. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. This is they've given a penalty away, and you know you've got to kick the ball, and you're doing everything in your power, so you don't have to kick the ball. So you have to create a ridiculous try and do anything. It doesn't last very long. Maybe it lasted a couple of minutes in a game, or it lasts a small part of the season. But that pressure is massive, and I think if you let it get under your skin, it then become very detrimental. And I think that what you do is you end up pushing it down the road in the sense that you don't allow it to become part of your day to day. Everything becomes quite flat. So, great wins are well done, next job. And then bad losses are right. Let's solve the problem. But you never really ricochet about highs and lows. And I think it's quite a nice thing. I think it teaches you quite well how to deal with pressure and how to manage things. It's funny then, I think you then probably deal with other stuff, the trivial stuff at home or whatever in your work less well, because you're so used to sort of going, oh, it was pretty stressful, but it was all right. And I think you just become you compartmentalize so well.
But in that moment, right? So you're saying that you have a few minutes in a game where you'll think, oh, I don't want to take this kick, whatever. Like, do you notice that in the moment?
Yeah, massively.
And then what do you do to get out of that moment?
You just have to then find your process again. So if you're running around, like, say for instance, you got a penalty and you were having a bit of a stinker day, or you weren't kicking very well, or actually the whole week's been really bad, you'd be like, I don't want this, and your gut would drop, and then you just try to find any way to get out of it, and then you just throw and try and make a pass, and then the penalty would go in, and it'd be like this huge sort of weight on you, and then you just have to then, if you were good enough, you were able then to bring it back to process, and if you weren't, if you thought about the consequence of your actions, then you're in trouble.
So when you say process, you're just thinking about the movement of kicking a
correct.
ball.
Everything is so simplified down. So it's like a golf swing, right? I mean, they're identical golf swings, and that's why you watch amazing golfers chunk the ball, out from one bunker to another, or hit it into the water, because they're not. It's the pressure that gets you, right?
We were speaking on the last episode about the yips.
Yeah,
all that sort of where the slightest imperfection in whatever routine. Kicking routines are so minute. I got the yips with cricket. The slightest difference in terms of your release, all of a sudden it makes a massive difference.
Absolutely,
it can just go. And
there were times you roll up the ball and you just literally as you were kicking the ball. So what's that? Not even half a second.
Yeah,
you were like, no. I've lost my hips there, or something's going on. I've just tugged it, And other times it sort of clunks over and you look a bit embarrassed. Take for instance, wonderful kick from Freddie Burns to win the Leicester. That was an absolute scud. Like, he's caught that so badly. Everything about that is horrible, but it doesn't matter because it's gone over. It's the greatest kick of his life. But if you broke that down as a goal shot, you'd be like, well, wasn't very good, because you can see how it ducked, but you see the revolution of the ball. And this is what happens with kicking. You end up sort of bringing it down to the nth degree. Now, does it matter that he sort of ducked one? Not at all. It's a classic Johnny one, isn't it? They say, oh, he didn't catch it very well. But did it matter? No, because he got the ball over and he dealt with the pressure, got enough on it. And so I think that's part of it as well. I think the issue with kicking is rugby's a really hectic sport. It's as you know, it's just everyone's flying around everywhere, and suddenly the game stops, and it's like you on your own. Everyone else is watching you. The whole stadium's watching you, and then you have to then be able to go. No one's watching me. Like Lee Halfpenny says, I'm just kicking on my my old rugby pitch, and just everything else is out, and it's quite hard to manage that. So when it's going well, it's okay. When it's going poorly, you've got to be really sort of strong. And there are times in my career that I've been kicking really badly, and stuff has been going over. And there's been times in my career where, at the same time, you've been kicking quite well, but because you've been a bit nonchalant or not really delivering on that process, it's a harder battle than it should be.
How did you deal with, say you did have a bit of a kicking meltdown, and I'm not just saying on a day, maybe a period where all of a sudden you just weren't striking it? And I think that's probably happened to most kickers.
Yes.
You know, it's happened to me. I'm probably not a kicker anymore because of my knee, but I certainly was. And, you know, you'd have a bit of a meltdown. The best thing to do sometimes would be take a step back. But when you have the weight of expectation of a nation, how did you deal with the fact that you're like, okay, well, it's just not going to plan? And, you know, if it goes like this on Saturday, there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah, I think age and experience gives you that. I think that when I was younger, and certainly maybe till I was 27, 28, I'd have kicked and kicked and kicked. I kicked my groin off. There were times in my career where I couldn't, like, if you lay down on your side in the bed and tried to lift my leg up, I couldn't lift it. My groin was really. I just kicked that hundreds and hundreds of balls. Had to solve the problem. And I think that when you get older, my routine. So my pre-match routine when I was sort of say I don't know, just let's say when I was at Leicester and England and all sorts, and Toulouse, all that stuff, and even Newcastle. But throughout my career to a certain age, that was pretty badly summarised. But anyway, to a certain point, a certain age, I would hit 24 goal kicks before I've even gone out in front of the post. So I've done 6 down the line, one side, 6 down the other line of the side, 6 on the 5-metre channel, 6 on the 5-metre channel. I'm not even looking at the post. Then I've gone out and around. And if I'm kicking well, I've hit 52, including those 42. And if I'm kicking badly, it could be 60, 70, right? Yeah. And so I remember hearing Dan Carter talk about he did his groin in the World Cup in 2011. He pulled it. He kicks 3 balls for the game. Like he was just like, I'm good, right? And so then towards the end, and that's a really, really powerful thing, right? I needed that time to get myself, and that was the condition that was put in as a younger person. But I think as I became older, I realized that actually I could just throw 10 balls out on a team one day, having warmed up with a few punts and stuff, and then got and just kicked 10 random kicks, because that was probably more like the game, right? It was sort of releasing that control that I didn't want to do as a younger boy. I had to be in control of it and manage it, and it made me feel good.
It kind of makes sense though, because like to master something, and it's the 10,000 hours, isn't it? And then probably when you were younger, you felt like, oh, you know, maybe I don't necessarily deserve to be here. Or you kind of felt you needed to earn your place. So you do that extra work, you do that extra training. But then as you get older, you're kind of like, yeah, I know that I've done the hours. I know I'm good enough.
Yeah, there is definitely a part of that. I think as well, there's probably that weird sportsman thing, with the Paul Ince putting his shirt on as he comes out the tunnel, or that sort of stuff, the superstition stuff, right? If I need to kick these many kicks to feel good, so I do it, and actually you didn't. And there was, there were times my body let me down. So for instance, I missed the Premiership final in who did we play? I did my groin. I'd been out. I did my ankle. They'd beaten Saracens. I then came back and was back that week, but came in quite late. Jordan ended up starting and played really well, but I think we lost that one. And no, it was Harlequins, that final. And I just couldn't leave it. I had to kick. And I went and hit like 30, 40, 50 kicks 2 days out, and my groin went. And that was it. And my groin I couldn't move it. And it's just DOMS, right? Because it wasn't used to it.
Yeah, of course.
And had I had that sort of self-confidence, maybe that level, I know it was a Premiership final, I know all that pressure was there, but had I just the confidence to go, we'll be right on the night sort of stuff. And maybe I'd have hit 10, walked off and just dusted my hands with it, and I might have been able to play that game. I probably wouldn't have changed the results. Quins were outstanding that day. But the point being is, it can then become to a detriment to yourself, right? And I think that's that balance. As you get older, you realise you don't need that time anymore. You just need to sort of feel quite good, confident. And actually, 95% of it's psychological. As I touched on before, you're running around, like, all of it's psychological, right? So if I don't feel good behind the ball, it's probably not going over. If I feel good, it's probably going over. And so why do I need to kick, right? And what does the day before, what does the Friday on the team Monday make any difference to my kicking on a Saturday? Nothing, because having kicked all my life, you might kick good on a Thursday and terrible on a Friday, then not bad. So it always fluctuates around. So I think you put lots of sort of pressure on yourself to expose yourself to, or certainly I did, to a high number of reps. But actually, as you said, that 10,000 hours, you've probably done that, right? You were at a stage now where you were a master of your skill, even though you probably didn't ever tell yourself you were, because you wanted to practice. But I think there was that ability certainly within you to let yourself go.
So what would you tell someone like Finn You know,
He's not a
I
kicker. He's
don't
not a
think I'll be
kicker.
goal kicking anytime soon.
kicker, but like in rugby for his sight stuff, like what would you be like?
Yeah, look, I
this
think
will
that's
help you.
it's the hardest. The first thing I think is enjoyment, right? That's the biggest thing. If you don't enjoy it, you won't go there, right? And I think that's the biggest part of my discovery playing lots of sports was enjoyment. And then I think like the biggest lesson is like, stuff's gonna go wrong, shit's gonna happen, and you've got to then don't look like you're not caring, because that's the worst thing. You know, if I watch a guy, if a ball bounces and the guy doesn't dive on it, leaves it to someone else and the opposite pick it up, that drives me insane. Like I lose my mind. You have to care, but you then don't need to probably, as I did as a young child, get really frustrated and scream and shout internally and also externally when I was really young, get really frustrated. I think I shouted either day. That's why.
Yeah,
you
remember.
You really
story time. What happened?
It was second week. It was a Wednesday, and I almost started crying.
That was post training though, right? Was it? No, it was slightly got a line slightly wrong, and I probably could have given you it earlier, but I wasn't used to.
Yeah,
and you overran it, and then you made me look bad, so I shouted at you.
And it wasn't even that. It was just, everyone was silent as well. That was it.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest thing. I think it's just like disrespectful word, but like it's just who we are. Like we're so ruthless, and that's the biggest thing. Like, so you know, you'll see this with the lads who've played so now, like Simon and stuff, and they're quite abrupt.
Yeah.
Like, do that. And it's not that it's just do it. And it's like, it's because everything has to be solved here and now. And it's not like, and as a fly half, you're lucky, you get to control everything, right? So everything's not your fault. It's never your fault.
Yeah. So would you mind if Finn started shouting at you?
No.
It's not, yeah.
No, it doesn't. And that's the thing, absolutely not. Like that, I think it's the biggest, most important thing. I think, you know, as I've interviewed out of the rugby world, lots of people have sort of said, well, how are you going to deal with a Finn who's got X amount of experience telling you what to do? Well, he knows more than me, right? So I see the total sort of meritocracy. I don't like a hierarchy. I like a flat hierarchy. If I'm going to split it, I have to go take it. And there are people that obviously you would take more from because their experience level's not. So I'm not listening to Finn. He's not an absolute brick, but there are.
They're not wrong.
But if he said, "I need that ball earlier," then part of me goes, "Okay, so why? Why is he that ball? Okay, well, I'm trying to do that, but why? Okay, so I'll think about it, and then I'll come back to it, and we'll solve a problem." And that's what I think. That's the joy about rugby is you solve problems really quickly, and the best people are the talkers. The best people who say, you know, "Floody blah, 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 I've got this ball. I'm here. This is where I want it." You're like, as a fly half, you just, I'm done. Like, all I do is I look here and I know that Finn's there, and we're done. And
so that's exactly what you said after the training session. You said you talked about the number 8 who played with you at, I can't remember which club it was, but you said he was like the best player you'd ever played with, not in terms of like skill level, because obviously you've played with like unreal players, international club, and against unreal players. You said you just taught the whole time. You just always knew where he was. It was just playing with him. It was just like that. Where he was the whole time, what he wanted.
Is really important.
It's funny what you say about the non-hierarchy thing, because I remember in pre-season or around pre-season time, we were doing a little back drill or whatever, and Ketch ran a really good inside line off you, and he was in a gap and he didn't give it to you. And then he came up and gave you a little bit of a hard time saying, "Oh, Toby, you should have given that to me." And then he walked past me and his eyes were just like so wide. He was just like, "Holy shit, I just gave Toby Flood advice." I don't know if you remember that.
I do. And he was in a hole. And I apologized. I said, "Sorry, Ketch, I got that one wrong." But that's what you want, right? And as long as you're not doing it like a... It's like,
he was really nice about it.
He's the loveliest man in the world. But you know, that point being is, you know, as long as it's not something like next thing, I think that's what happens in football a little bit. You get that sort of dialogue. Whereas I think in rugby, it's as long as you do it away, I think people listen to you. And then Ketch runs those lines really well. So then the good thing going forward is like, I know that he's around, right? So then you know he's around. So then you start subconsciously to look for him and feel him and listen to what he's saying.
So what have you learned? I was going to ask this in a non-rugby context, and we'll get to that in a second. But as a rugby player, what have you learned since coming to Cambridge then, if anything?
As a non-rugby player?
No, as a rugby player first.
It's brought me back to sort of just the joy of rugby. Just like, as in, like, when it gets heavy and it gets high, it can be sometimes a bit, sort of not turgid, but just a bit beige, because it's just week after week of performance, and it sounds amazing, but you're just never off that treadmill, and it becomes a bit of a business. And I think now it's just the absolute enjoyment bit, and I've actually learned loads. Like I watched it. You learn lots by the way the guys move, how they change lines. It's slightly different to yours, so actually you become much more adaptable. Where the space is different, so you have to learn how to manufacture that. And And I've just really enjoyed that integration of being in a, and again, I'll reference Matt because he obviously is Quins, but he just started smiling the first time he was just, this is amazing, I'm loving this. Because it's what we played as young boys, right? It's what we did. And that's been the best bit. It's just been sort of the fact that you've been welcomed by in open arms and lads enjoy you. And you enjoy playing with them, and it's been brilliant. And then you just learn, I think, yes, you have to learn also on myself is how to play, with different people, different exposures to levels and different people within that environment and their likes. And it's another learning curve. So I really enjoy it.
Would that say then that you feel that there's a little bit less pressure as well? Because obviously, as someone who hasn't played professional sport coming into uni rugby, I think I have 3 varsities this term, 3 different sports. And something I've been saying the past couple of weeks, I said it to you the other day, actually, the pressure is just a lot. But maybe relative to what you've been used to, you can obviously come in and
yes and no. I think I remember like the first time I came off the bench last season, Jahan very sweetly said, "Oh look, he always does." And there's some guy in the opposition team went, "Who?" Doing that, which is brilliant. Which is just what you wanted. You went, "Oh," and I was like, "Excellent." And then I got cheap shotted to death. Right?
Yeah,
I got kicked. My head got kicked in, and I love that. But then that pressure kicks up because then you're actually not the only one, but you're that guy that everyone wants to have a swing at, right? I remember some guy hit me so late with a massive ginger beard. He really got me in my head properly when I was pulling his beard. Which
game was this?
I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was. Who was that first game against? It wasn't Cambridge City. It was.
Did you play Durham?
Yeah, you did. That was this year.
Sorry.
Last year, I got like. Yeah. Okay, no, and actually, I kicked a guy in the head by accident, right? Genuinely by accident. But he was going to try and reach out and score a try, and so I threw my leg back and threw it over the top, and I got the ball, but I caught him pretty badly, and he had a huge and I thought, he's going to go for me here, and he was like, no, he's all right. I thought, let's go good. So he was quite chilled out, so it was quite nice. But so I gave a little bit back, but then I think the same was similar. He was scrapping 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, he was.
So it's like people, it's coming, right? And it's just then the same as 6'10", right? He's massive. He can look after himself. I'm some sort of like 13 stone.
He's also, it was a shock, right? Because he always wears quite baggy clothes and his hat, and then he put on the shirt the other day. He's massive, man. And then he starts shotting blokes, and he's a big man. I wouldn't want to fight him.
He's lost like 10.
I know. He slimmed down a bit as well.
Jamie said as well.
Yeah. He's massive. You think about that, like running around, like athletic is great, but he's huge. But then when he's at that level, and he hasn't lost a yard of pace, lots of stuff. He's terrible.
Because it was him and Peters were shotting people. I was like, that's pretty close to 250.
Yeah, I think this is as heavy as our.
It's like a quarter of a ton.
That's 150k Peters, though, by the way. That's
heavily in most of that Peters.
It's mainly him. He's a big boy.
Sorry, Angus.
I just like the way the shirt fits him. Just impossible to tuck in. Cannot tuck a shirt in. Brilliant.
Not at all. So you feel like there's a target on your back then?
Yeah, there is a bit. I think, but that's what you knew was happening, right? Yeah. The same if Oxford had, Chris Robshaw, I think, had a look to go there. And if we walked up a Varsity, Chris Robshaw was playing there, right? You'd be flying in. So it's normal.
Yeah, I think he might be going next year.
I
spoke to him a few weeks ago for the Rugby podcast, and he said,
"I'm in an arm with me." He was sort of.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe you have a more recent. Mine was
no. I think yours is more.
Okay, that'll be good. Oh, you guys could have played against each other. You're going to just miss each other. That's a shame.
It would have been quite nice.
Can't have a floody PhD on the horizon.
When you asked me about the Cambridge experience off the field, you understand why I'm not doing a PhD.
Okay, all right, go on then.
I'm only kidding. No, I've loved it. It's been amazing. I think the cohort I've got is brilliant. The MBA, executive MBA is just astronomically challenging in terms of me writing reports. I was saying to you last week, I've written 10,000 whatever it was because we've got our individual projects.
All submitted now?
Nearly. I've got one more thing to do, but it's pretty much there. Just dotting, crossing. But it's just that, and the great thing is, I think you then have people in Diageo running that parts of Diageo, people running parts of McDonald's, and you've got, the CFO of Baidu in one corner, although he's not turned up yet because he's the CFO of Baidu, doesn't need to, right? He's Chinese guru, does it once. And like a Navy SEAL. And so you've got all these amazing people, right? So going forward, you can tap into that network, right? There's a guy leasing planes, right? If I want to get in that industry, can I go speak to John, who's an absolute rock star? And so you've got this really incredible network of really good people, which is by and far the most profitable bit, I think, part of it. The lectures are amazing. They've been really good. But I think it's that sort of jump from being a rugby player to then moving into the academic world, and then how good those lecturers are, and then two, then or three, then that sort of that network that you build out, and people then are willing to help, and it's hugely collaborative, right? So the first assignment, I was daunted at writing some financial accounting reporting stuff, and Asad was in my group. He's a bit of a he's in finance, living out in UAE, and he's amazing. So that then is a huge learning curve for me to sit there and listen to him talk about it. Okay, now and it builds it out. So the collaboration is huge. It's been unbelievably enjoyable.
I have a question I really want to ask. So you mentioned the highs and the lows, but when it comes to rugby, you're kind of flat because that's the best way to deal with all the pressure. What about off the pitch? Because surely there are still like highs, big highs. I mean, coming home with all the rugby lads and just like when it comes to like outside of rugby.
Yeah, look, I think the highs off the I think the highs off the field are those ones sort of at training. So sorry, at training and after games, they're the best bits. The last 10 minutes after the game, if you had a good win, whatever, it's the best 10 minutes, right? All that sacrifice you did, all the bits you put to the side, they're the bits. And what I don't think those is, and that's probably the difference between professional rugby and this level potentially is that those boys will go socialise, right? They'll go and have a couple of beers, they'll go to Revs, they'll go fly in, have a really good time. Where I think a young, especially you,
maybe.
He's just
I've been once. No, that's not true.
And I think that's it. So I think that you guys properly throw in, right? And I think whereas rugby players you don't, because you can't let yourself go out there now. And I think that on the low side of things, I think that's again, but I think then that in amateur rugby, I think it's still then it's pretty not that low because you do lose and then you will go socialise and have a beer with each other and sort of shrug it off. So I think rugby does teach you that sort of behaviour.
Do people come sign for like autographs and stuff?
No, God, no. You have to remember, everyone in that room is between the ages of 18 and 21, and they probably weren't born when I started playing rugby, which is
No, that's
go on, Finn.
Well, I was gonna say I've got a small Toby, very small now. It wouldn't fit me. Small Toby Flood Leicester t-shirt at home. Yeah, wow, and really? I'm only genuinely.
And I'm only 19. Back in the day when we first met.
Yeah. So I'm only 19. So I would have been what 10 or 9? Okay, maybe 8. So it's definitely the time when.
Very good. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. That's very sweet of you. I'll stop shouting, you know.
He said on the episode last week you were one of the first names that you.
Yeah, that
so you're just now you when it's the last generation you've got.
When you're like really long, you only know like. I remember kicking about in like junior school, and I only knew like Frank Lampard as a football player.
Yeah, okay.
So you know like
good ones,
2 or 3 names.
Yeah.
Well, he was a good man.
I'm with you. That makes sense. Yeah, no, I'm trying to teach my eldest son now all the names and Newcastle United fan. Kiri, that's Kiri. Yeah, that's good.
Keep signing new people every week.
The still rule, mate. We lost Man United 2 days ago. Let's ignore that. Yesterday.
Who's it? Newcastle.
2-0.
Oh, of course. Well, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I'm not in a way worse place.
What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you spent so much money.
I was speaking to someone earlier. It's so difficult to buy in on a club that is just living such an ethically awful way. I know you wanted. Sorry, we haven't got too long left. Get to your question. No, you are, but it's fine.
How managing like kids and a family and a normal life?
Yeah, that's tough. I think that's tough. I think that it's just the time away, but I think it's no different than probably guys of my age in industry would be away a couple of nights a week potentially, depending on their job. So I've got friends in finance, friends in marketing, or whatever, and they often are spend 1 or 2 nights away from home. So it's a bit the same here. So you come up on a Monday, and it's not the easiest because even though I'm much closer than I was when I was at Newcastle, it's still 2 hours, 2 hours 15. It's not the end of the world, but it's much better than Newcastle. But it's just part of it, right? And I think the good thing is I get this experience where you have the outliers like Simo who has kids and all those guys who have kids. You get the younger generation that kind of makes you smile, and you sort of a little bit envious, but also sort of like, thank God I don't have to do that again. Like, that's finished. And then they get the cohort at the end, though, which is my course, which again is a really good cost demographics. Most people have children there, or if not, they're of that age. So it's been a really good blend in terms of getting pockets of people that you can associate with and learn from.
Do you feel like you tell your kids to kind of follow in your footsteps?
God, no.
No,
God.
I think that says a lot, though, doesn't it?
No. And I think I was speaking to someone the other day, and they know a few people, and they sort of said, it's funny that I've not had a single sportsman I've asked would want to do it. It's weird. Look, I think I'm sort of being slightly facetious, but in terms of time, in terms of time and the lifestyle, if you can guarantee it, you absolutely go for it, and it would be amazing. And it is wonderful, and you're really lucky to do basically a hobby for a living, which is mad. Beyond that, though, what you have to give up and how you have to act and how you have to be quite a miserable human being for, from the age of sort of 17 to 21, 22, I'm probably still miserable now, but in terms of how you have to sacrifice and what you have to give up is pretty tricky. My friends would always go out and socialize. I wouldn't. I'd drive and I'd hang out and I'd leave at 11 o'clock or whatever. So I think there's parts of it that are wonderful, but there's sort of, you see the end bit, right? You see the bit where somebody's achieved something and or got there. And I think there's a lot of self-doubt that flies around. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of, and especially in this modern era where everyone is so gettable. I worry about that more than anything else, because if I was crap when I was 19, which I was often, 20 often, and I'd heard about it, and I do worry about that sort of level of exposure that people have on Twitter. Talking about Chelsea before, right? Graham Potter apparently his family's getting pulled into this sort of stuff. I've not read it. I just saw it. Yeah. So it's like this is beyond the pale, really. So of course I would, absolutely. I love them all to be sportsmen. Mainly golf or football.
I've got one, which I'm slightly scared to ask you, but that's about your middle names.
Oh yeah, so I think one has been someone said you called Cecil, and I thought, oh, where's that come from? So someone's just gone onto Wikipedia and written that. I've actually, whoever that was, I quite like. They've just gone with it makes sense because look at how ridiculous his name is.
Wait, Cecil's not actually your middle name?
No, not at all.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how. It's a computer, right? I don't know how that works. A rugby player. It's like Zoolander where they're trying it's in the machine and break it.
Really?
Oh my! Yeah.
So it's Tobias, Gerald, Albert.
So
Leven is in there.
So Leven isn't. So
Leven's added.
Just put it in. Why not? So so I'm named after both my grandparents, male grandparents. Okay. So my mum's dad and my dad's dad, and that's my mother's maiden name because she's German. So it could have been worse because he was
100%.
He was Fritz Lear van Leven when he came over. So he left in Germany in 1936. He had a Jewish wife at the time.
Okay.
Pinged a few cars, burnt them out. The passports went to the family, the extended family. They left. And then he came over with a suitcase, my mum's half brother and his wife. And that was it. So, and he had then changed his name to Albert. So that's why. So it's Gerald Albert Leven. So be your grandparents. So so what's your mum's maiden name, Finn?
Collins. Yeah.
Okay, so what would you be then? You'd be...
I would have been Finn. Oh, this is a great test, isn't it? Finn, Leonard, Gavin, Collins, Edwards.
There you go. Yeah, so that's what I've got. So it's not that abstract, but it's a bit weird. Yeah. Also, when you're new at school, it's not great. And I'm a Tobias rather than being a Toby as well.
Well, the 3 is fine. It was just the 4. So
I know. Well, that's good. Well, there you go. So they made it one. Yeah. Well, a friend of mine, but once
I think Cecil is the worst.
It's easily the worst, right? Well. The best bit about that. So I remember, again, I don't understand how Wikipedia works, but a friend of mine got bored one day, and I just started playing a bit for Newcastle, a bit of England stuff. And he wrote about how much I love cheese on my Wikipedia page. Genuinely, I was he absolutely doesn't like a brie, but loves a cow. I always wrote 2 paragraphs. And my old school published it in a newsletter, and there's 2 paragraphs of cheese chat, and I was like, "How is this?
Is it factually accurate?"
Well, obviously, He did reference it. But I'm like, what is going on? So Wikipedia's open reviews. Should never reference it. Apparently, I learned that early.
So when you look up Toby Flood, then literally the second line of info is fake news. Because it's not just, obviously it's Wikipedia, but the first thing when you see your name is your Wikipedia name.
Is that right?
Yeah. And it says Cecil.
I'm going to join Trump on his new whatever it is. His new platform, whatever it is. Yeah,
that is concerning. I know doctors that will just use Wikipedia to diagnose things.
Oh, I'll never use Wikipedia. Yeah, it's the one thing you get taught, mate.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome.
So we can have a bit of fun with it. What are they diagnosing so I can write some stuff on it?
But
she's talking about Dave Holdroth.
Yeah. Definitely kiss the geriatric woman. She'll love you for it.
What would you do differently your whole life? Must be.
That's a big question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, how long have we got?
I don't think you get. Do you know what? I don't think you get to choose that stuff. I don't think early on in your life. I think autonomy comes a little bit later. I think you're quite heavily guided by your parents. Or I think, my kids are fairly sporty, probably because we're both quite sporty. Look at other friends who are quite academic, and they probably are, right? And I know for a fact, I've watched my son try and play the piano or the recorder. I was in the bottom set at recorder. He has my same genetic makeup. he cannot hold a tune. Right? He's awful, like truly.
I didn't know recorder was setted.
Well, this is surprising because he's definitely in the bottom second as an idiot, and he can't hold it. And I was in a set with a kid who at the time obviously didn't know how to autism, so just didn't play. He used to throw it across the room, and one guy genuinely who had learning difficulties. That was my set. The three of us. So, like,
what were you doing?
I was trying my best to record, but he was still better than me. So,
one of the recorder was over on the other side of the room. He was way better.
He made a better tune. The whistle it made went across the room was really good. So I know that. So I think
it's like a vortex going through the air.
So I'm not saying that I think you sort of think you get, having this conversation now with, you want to give as much opportunity as possible, but there are things they're predisposed to quite like. And I think I was probably that as a kid. I loved the idea of running around with the ball and kicking people and people kicking me and wrestling, all that sort of stuff. It's a very boy thing to do, I think, at an early age. To some extent, not all, but to some extent. And I think you're just trying to give as much opportunity as possible. So I don't think you can do anything differently, because I think your life's sort of not manufactured, but I think it's sort of manicure, for want of better words, manipulated, bit of a difficult word, but you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of orchestrated. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, it's just sort of the early part is definitely
there's a natural flow.
There is, I think, because of who your peers are, who your parents are, where you grew up, what exposure you have, all that sort of stuff. So I think that it's quite hard to say you do things differently. I think throughout your career you do things differently in terms of decisions you made or moments in games or whatever, but I don't think that burns into regret, right? I think that's always just been, that's just rugby, right?
It's funny they mentioned recorder as the first thing.
I know.
Regret,
it still gets me now. Liam Moulton was the kid's name. I know his name. All my mates in Newcastle know who Liam Moulton is. They know he's in the same sort of Liam Moulton. They won't talk to me again.
What's he doing now? Everyone knows what their nemesis is doing now.
I'm not sure what Liam is doing.
Give him a look on LinkedIn later.
Yeah, I'll find him on LinkedIn. Maybe he's a recorder teacher.
Teaching other students to throw their recorders across the room.
Weaponize recorders.
Start the revolution.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you mentioned the rugby, but I mean, the one thing that came to my head when Saz asked if you do anything differently was the Brian Moore clip. You would have kicked the ball away less against Italy.
I think it was. I don't know. That was sadly our tactic that day, and look, it wasn't my favourite tactic. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I think actually got not a bit of trouble, but Borthwick came out and defended that result. We were pretty poor that day.
Yeah.
He was captain at the time. And I kind of came out and went, no, we were a bit rubbish, weren't we? And I think our thing was to kick as much, because we kicked a lot against Italy. I think we were in that time, it was probably, was it 2007, 8, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was post-World Cup, wasn't it?
Was it? I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I was 8. So.
Yeah, exactly. Let's show off. So I think,
I don't get many chances.
I get a lot of stick for it, but I think that, I was the one that popped his, I think it was the 4,000th kick of the game. So it wasn't just me. But having said that, we were just quite nervous, right? We got to come back from something, or we weren't playing very well, and we needed that game to go well. Yeah. I think we scored quite early on and did all right, but then going forward, we just sort of.
So the reason I brought that up was you obviously get clips that go viral, and that was towards the beginning of that era.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, from the weekend we had Freddie Stewart, whose bum came out against Wales and stuff. Right. How aware as a professional player are you that a clip like that gains traction, or all of a sudden you're out there?
My friend of mine would always send it to me, taking the mick out of me, but I wouldn't know that would gone viral because I'm not of that era, I guess. But I think the players probably, it depends how exposed they are to social media and what they're doing. Like, that's the biggest thing. If they're on it and they're looking at stuff, then they'll know.
Well, Instagram wasn't a thing back then,
right? Exactly.
So...
most things weren't. Electric cars are dreamy. Look at them now; they're all over the place, right? So all that sort of stuff. So I think that you would never that expose. Like, I think maybe it wouldn't even be on Instagram or Twitter. It would be on YouTube or something, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly where it was.
So that's why I think. Whereas players now definitely are exposed to that a lot more.
Well, it was Freddie Stewart. What's the I forget now. Who's the Scotland 12 again?
Tuipulotu.
Yeah, Tuipulotu. He said after he got bounced by Freddie Stewart, like, the first thing he thought was, "Fuck, that's gonna be on Instagram." Yeah, and he said that on the interview. He was like, "Oh, it pissed me off because I just knew that was gonna go viral." And then, like, Freddie goes in the background of the interview and he's like, "Yeah, like, I've already seen the video.
I haven't seen that.
Like, it's been Wow. Like, this is an actual interview." He's like, "The first thing I thought was it's gonna be on."
But I guess if you've grown up in that era, right, you kind of know how to manage it. You know that maybe.
All the celebs are struggling, right?
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough.
No, I think it depends though. It depends, because he was more saying it in like a jokey way.
Yeah.
Like, whenever I play local teams at school. So like all my games at school were recorded. Like you know the local lads you're playing.
Right, yeah,
okay. Around you at different schools. Like I would scour through the videos, not looking for like, oh, we should have had like better structure here. Like our missile wasn't working. I want to see like guys I know getting bounced, getting stepped, like falling over. I'd record it, I'd send it to them, like, and that was it. So he was almost saying it more of a jokey way. He wasn't like, oh fuck, I'm going to be abused for it. He was like, I know there's going to be like 10,000 people.
Well, it's like the
retweeting it.
It's like the highlight video JP made of our first term, and it was highlight videos. It was like Crick running through and bouncing, setting up for a try, and then it was just Marwood getting shotted like 10 yards behind the game line. He gets a hospital pass and gets absolutely shotted. That was the most popular bit of it.
Yeah, it's just I feel like to an extent it's funny, but then like then you get the other side of it, which is like I don't know, the one that springs to mind is like the Euros with the missed penalties. Then it's not funny.
Yeah.
But like 2 of us are getting bounced, funny.
Yeah.
Me bouncing like my mates, funny.
Maybe
that's great.
The people that are looking at these rugby videos are a certain type of person that are less likely to be critical, whereas football is more of a mainstream thing that lots of people engage in, and then are more likely to criticize in a way that's not.
I also think it depends like what's actually happening. Like,
have you seen? There's a YouTube series called "Greatest Rugby Players Humiliate Each Other," and it's like part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's like
hundreds of parts
Manu Tulangi got bounced by Julian Surveyor, and it's basically like your head-to-heads between Clash of the Titans, etc. Who is the biggest Titan that you've smashed?
Oh, smashed? God, no, nobody. Like
or been smashed by.
That was more. I wasn't a bad defender for a 10. I was all right, but there's a few people you hit and it was all right. But I think the biggest, most scary bloke I ever played with was Jerry Collins.
Yeah,
he was horrible, nasty player. Like, but lovely man, but just on the field was just nasty. Remember, I think we played in the Barbarians and I played for England one time. He genuinely like, just picked me up like a rag doll, like under one arm and just like walking me backwards. And I was sort of, maybe 21, 22 at times. Like, this is terrifying. Yeah. And he would then, meant it, if that makes sense. So he was awful. I think it was, I always remember we played New Zealand 2010 and it was supposed to be Conrad Smith, really lovely footballer, but not massive, and Marnonu. And after a team run, we got or the Thursday they announced the team, and it was Sonny Bill Williams. So it was Mar and Sonny, and it was like, So we had an emergency defense meeting to be like, how we deal with this?
Yeah.
Both at 18.5 stone. Like,
that's a 230 kilo midfield.
Massive, and still like fresh off in the offload scene. We put like 10-minute clip together. We do all those highlight videos. And it was generally just watching Sonny Bill Williams like ridicule people and offload stuff, like to a point where it was like obscene. And our defense coach Mike Fort time sort of after the finish was like, "So guys, any thoughts? What should we do?" Nothing. I have no idea what to do. I remember I genuinely that Tublot thing. I remember tackling him in the game and like him not being able to offload and thinking I've done the greatest thing in the whole day. Do you mean like he was a freak. He was absolutely free.
Yeah.
But there were some big players, and it's the big ones that are nasty, right? They're the big ones. So I never really had to play against Henry Tuolangi, but he was tough. Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the photo of the 5 of them lined up? And,
it's ridiculous.
Oh my god!
I remember,
and obviously Manu's a unit himself, but Manu looks like Saz next to Henry.
Henry's, and he was nasty.
Yeah. Just because he looks tiny. He's this 115 kilo rugby player that gets dwarfed by him. I'll show you the photo once off air.
They have like because you mentioned the rugby players humiliating each other. They have like a Tuolangi taking names video, which is like half an hour long. It's like all their whole family. It's like a documentary. It's a short film.
I remember I played that game when he was absolutely destroying Nick Bendon at Bath. And actually had like I remember looking at Nick and being like, Nick, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely think I said to him again, like, he just everything Nick did, man, it was there. And I was like,
it was both of them as well.
Yeah, they both had
a vendetta against him.
I remember when we played Samoa how many years ago, and then somebody kicked the ball down the pitch, probably was me, and I chased it, and Alessandro got it and ran straight at me and eyeballed me. We were less teammates at the time. I'm being like, this is the way.
He likes doing that. Luckily that didn't go viral. The Shane Horgan one.
Yeah, well that's it. Yeah,
where he points at him and then
that was my
him
first season. I remember that. And then so he runs straight at me, and I remember like, okay, here I go, like just crouch down, hope for the best, like says take goodbye to my loved ones, and and he fell over.
Yeah,
I tackled him. I was like, whoa, and then he just lay on the floor, looked at me, and went, "Don't worry, Chief, I've got you." An international game. It was we were mates at Leicester. He was such a nice guy.
Oh, bless
I
him.
know. I was like, I gave him the biggest hug of the game. I was actually all his other mates like scowling around.
What a special moment.
Yeah, he was a very good man. I know. I bought a few beers after that.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, to save me from being. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Barbarians, actually, because I remember it's a bit of a coming of age game, the Barbarians, isn't it? Because you're playing against people who just have nothing to lose, effectively.
Yeah.
I remember Henry Slade in one of his first games for England got absolutely brutalised on 2 or 3 occasions by Rene Ranger.
Oh, he was a good player.
He was a good player, yeah.
Really good
just
player.
had an ability to bounce people despite.
It was
I mean, he was
stiff
big.
arm as well. There's the one of him where he picks up. He literally Savia gets airtime.
Yeah,
He just throws him into the ground.
Yeah,
That's
Sevilla's
scary.
backpedaling and he just
choke
slams him
picks him
basically.
up, throws him down, and that's a big man to do that.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah, it's not easy.
I feel like we're getting carried away with all these testosterone
I know,
videos. Yeah, we've got a meeting downstairs now. Actually, wrap us up.
Great
Saz.
fun. Yeah.
Little plug for Varsity, I guess. March 25th. Get
Big
your
plug.
tickets.
Yeah.
Big plug for Varsity.
There.
I hope so. I still hope I'm involved. I'll definitely be involved in one form or the other. Yeah, I think if I can get out, fantastic. If I can't, then I want to be as involved as possible, which is pretty cool.
March the 11th as well.
Oh, the 60th.
60th.
Nice.
Yeah, he's got.
I've done 2 Vars. I got a blue last year, losing blue
you?
sadly. Yeah, and then so the plan was to take this one and hopefully win this one.
Do your research.
Sorry.
No, it's
Goodness
all right.
me.
It's all right.
I thought it was better if it was authentic.
This is better than the Blues Blazer, though. This is the most.
Yeah, you don't get to keep that though, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a shame.
Okay, so we'll end the episode here. Thanks for coming. Our next guest will probably be an ice hockey person, maybe, because our Varsity's next weekend, but we're not really sure. Thanks for coming back. Our episodes will get better and better as time goes on.
No, we peaked.
Well, this one was
Toby Flood's
great,
the
yeah.
How dare you, sir?